Justin Sheehan, how lessons from SEAL Team 6 can transform your everyday life. I want to extend a sincere thank you to Lieutenant Commander Kegan SMURF Gill, former guest on the show, US Navy retired, former F-18 Super Hornet pilot, for making this connection possible with Justin. Kegan's commitment to helping high-performance professionals is phenomenal, and he continues to bring important voices and real-world experience to a wider audience. Kegan, I appreciate the trust and the bridge you built here. Justin Sheehan is a former SEAL Team 6 operator, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu instructor, and coach, whose experience spans elite special operations, traumatic brain injury recovery, and high-performance training. His career placed him in environments where discipline, adaptability, and resilience were not concepts, they were survival requirements. Today, he applies those lessons to coaching athletes, civilians, and professionals seeking durability in both body and mind. Justin's perspective is shaped by hard realities. He speaks openly about the hidden toll of traumatic brain injury, not only from combat, but from repeated concussive exposure through training, firearms use, and contact sports. So it does apply to everybody. The cumulative damage is often misdiagnosed, manifesting as depression, hormonal disruption, sleep issues, and cognitive decline. His message is direct. The small hits add up, and awareness, assessment, and recovery must be taken seriously. Discipline, in Justin's view, is not just rigidity, it is maintenance. In military life, accountability is built in. In civilian life, it must be intentional. Sleep, nutrition, hydration, and consistent movement form the foundation of recovery and longevity. Alcohol, poor sleep, and inactivity erode performance faster than age ever will. Movement is medicine. Intensity, scaled to reality, preserves capability. He draws clear parallels between special operations and athletics. Both involve trauma, recovery, stress adaptation, and mental resilience. Training must reflect reality. Live sparring, pressure testing, and scenario-based training build the mindset and competence required when the stakes are real. Sport fighting has rules. Self-defense does not. The goal in self-defense is survival and creating the opportunity to escape. As a coach, Justin emphasizes humility, specialization, and continuous learning. Elite teams rely on experts. Effective coaching requires knowing your limits and building networks of competence. He also stresses the importance of empowering others, especially women, with practical self-defense skills and the confidence to act under pressure. At its core, Justin Sheehan's message is about resilience built through discipline, awareness, and purposeful training. Protect the brain, maintain the body, train for reality, stay adaptable. Capability is not preserved by accident, it is maintained through consistent, deliberate effort. So I hope you enjoy this show as much as I did chatting with Justin. You can connect with Justin below on the show links. Please click on those. He's on the Instagram, justin.sheehan.779. The links are to click on there. His email, sheehan1876@gmail.com. And how great is that he's given his email out to help others. And for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, check out Detachment North BJJ in Traverse City, Michigan. Thanks for watching. I'm Damien Porter, former New Zealand Special Forces operator, subject matter expert, and the How Not to Die guy. And you're listening to my podcast, Straight Talk Mind and Muscle. This episode is proudly sponsored by these guys, State and State for Women, because aging is inevitable, but how we age is a choice. State is the ultimate daily formula for optimal health and longevity, backed by clinically proven 100% natural ingredients that's designed to support hormone health, stress resilience, energy, and performance. And I use it every single day. And a special thanks also to my new sponsor, Michael Mason and the Mason Survival Protocol. Links to both of these are in the show notes below. Catch all my past episodes and resources in the notes as well. Thanks for watching. Now let's get into it. And we're live. Welcome to the Straight Talk Mind and Muscle podcast. Welcome to my guest this morning, all the way from America, one of my favorite places, one of the places I felt the most safe in the whole world. Justin Sheehan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
Hey man, I love the background. I love the log cabin, and it's great to have you here. Thank you to Kegan Gill for making me aware of you and kind of introducing um, you to me. Great guy, Kegan. Amazing show, one of the most powerful ones. How did you two get together?
Yeah, Kegan, he came by way of another friend. He's from northern Michigan, which is where I live, and he's over on the west side of the state, about an hour from here. I'm more in the middle of the mitten. But another friend that was actually training. I have an affiliate over in Traverse City for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and one of the guys that was in there, he says he actually texted me. I was out of town. I was down in another state, and he says, "Hey, I've got a really close friends coming in on Saturday. Are you going to be there? I'd love for you to meet him. I think you'd really like his story, and you guys would have some things in common." And it turned out there was Kegan, right? And he actually sent me a podcast that he'd been on, and so I knew his story before I got there, and it was actually pretty tight timelines. I don't think Kegan knows that, but I made sure I met all those timelines so that I could get back into Michigan and be there for that first class that he took. And I come into the lobby, and he's got his back to me, and I can see all the scars, right, from all the
Wow.
surgeries going
Wow.
down his body. And he's got a little bit of like a Wolverine looking thing going on, because he's got all these marks where he's had hardware put in. And I immediately, I was like, well, that's got to be him. And from then on, we hit it off. We've been buddies. He's a student of mine now, and he's there. I just saw him Wednesday night at class, and he's a really inspiring person in general. His story is inspiring, but I think moving past what he went through, now he's even more so, right? He's overcoming things every day, and he's just an incredible dude. So yeah, he was on your show, and he said, "Hey, I think you'd be great for this," and so yeah, Kagan's awesome.
I'm glad we persevered and connected. Kegan, I was a bit the same. I knew a little bit of a story, crashing an F-18 and or ejecting out of it just prior to the speed of sound and crashed 2 seconds later. But little did I realize, I listened to his whole audiobook after the show. Um, Little did I realize that was just the start of the story. That was probably the best part of everything that happened to him, was getting broken into pieces and having to get all the hardware put in, as you said. And gosh, isn't it interesting? He's looking up to you because you're an instructor, but these people, they inspire us, don't they?
Yeah, they really do. And he's such a humble guy. You obviously know that from talking with him. But yeah, I think it's awkward. It feels awkward. It doesn't feel right when he stands there and we're getting a picture together or something at the club, and I'm like, I'm honored to be here next to you. And
Yeah.
he's telling me like, "Oh, thank you so much for class," and you almost feel guilty. You're like, dude, I'm grateful to have you in there. And then yeah, you're right. His story really begins after the crash.
Yeah.
After that, the stuff that he dealt with the military medical stuff, and then post military career with the civilian side of it. And he's a great advocate, and I think he's going to continue to be going forward for vets that they haven't had that those resources or that support.
Yeah, and so interesting that it translates not just to, a horrendous crash like that, but it can. I think it just came out a month or two ago that even just the concussions from rifle shooting, and I'm saying this for civilians, can cause traumatic brain injury and cause all those downstream effects that can look like PTSD, look like depression, look like low testosterone. I think that either came out from New Zealand Army or one of the New Zealand SAS guys sent it to me. But isn't that quite telling that just shooting a rifle that many times, and of course we shot those a lot, can cause that damage to a human brain?
Yeah, I mean, the things we did to our nuggets, whether it was, I think training, I think we take that for granted too. Everybody really zones in on the operational side of it, but the training side of it, and I felt like development group was doing a good job, at least when I left, at highlighting that. Some of the guys there were very aware of it. They were saying, "Hey, we don't need to stand in front of these doors at the exact arming distance of these 40 Mike grenades, right? And
Yeah.
send them into door after door and take these hits. And guys were saying, let's step back. Like there's no longer punish the new guy kind of thing going on, because guys are, it's affecting the outcome of the team in the long haul when you're subjecting yourselves to that kind of stuff. And we know it now. The small ones compounded over time are worse than actually getting, one big explosion or something to that effect. So yeah, Kegan's an example of that, right? With his TBI and that kind of just spiraled out of control and was misdiagnosed and probably mistreated because of the misdiagnosis.
Yep.
And yeah, and I think I was more aware of that kind of thing because I was a combat medic. That was a collateral duty of mine when I was at Team 2.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, so I was a little bit more aware, but even at that time, the protocol and policy hadn't really caught up yet, right? We still were just eating it.
Yeah, that's what we do. That's kind of a good segue into part of where I wanted to ask you a loaded question. Some context on it. I interviewed Greg Johnson, Pup Johnson, New Zealand SAS guy, and we were talking about the difference between special forces operators and civilians. And I asked him that loaded question. I said, why are we special? What makes us different? Because I think we are. And he stated it was because we make life and death decisions in training, like you said, Justin, just about every second of what we're doing. We go to work and it's life and death decisions, which is pretty crazy. So I wanted to ask you a question. I did ask Mark Doreen, former Australian SAS guy, this question yesterday. He's gone on to do great things. The question is, why the hell should we listen to a SEAL Team 6 guy? Why the hell should we listen to what has he got? What has a shooter got to contribute to the world? Now, let's put context into that. I'm going to talk to you today about discipline, about performance enhancement and athleticism and so on. But why should we listen to a guy who let's do civilian wise, who just used to learn to pull the trigger and blow stuff up? What makes us relevant and useful for the world?
Yeah, I think that we are the body of evidence for it, most importantly, just because of the, being in conflicts for 20 plus years now. And obviously we have all of us across the globe have a lot of experience in conflicts over the last 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
But most importantly, with the, IEDs coming on board, right? All that stuff coming online with the Iraq and Afghan war. I think we saw more of those concussive things occurring overseas. Obviously, we have those micro concussions with the, shooting a high caliber rifle or explosions or just getting knocked in the head or a hard helo landing, all of it, right?
Mm.
But this conflict specifically has created all of that empirical evidence. And then on top of that, we've gotten really good at documenting it. Yep. And doing the studies and sending guys to, in America, we send them to Walter Reed. I went up there and did the TBI clinic, right, in Walter Reed, and a 30-day protocol where you go in and head to tail assessment,
Awesome.
and I think that we might not be seeing it yet, but eventually we will see what's going on with the brain. What's this mapping that's occurring on the brain and the gray areas, and what's it really mean is going on after these concussive events. So I think most importantly, we know it in the community from an operational standpoint that you learn, unfortunately, through blood, right? Like
yep.
You learn through loss, and mistakes are made and they're written in blood, and that is the surest way to adapt and change something.
You got it.
And I think for the civilian community, we're doing that for them, or we have done it for them. And it's not we chose to serve. So in a sense, we're still kind of serving in that way. And I don't think that the civilian populace should ignore it, because we did it, not for them, for ourselves and our family and our loved ones, but we did it, so we might as well learn from those mistakes that were made and then apply it to different things.
There we go. And when you said learn in blood, it's not just on the battleground. a New Zealand rugby player took his own life 1 month ago because he had a CTI and TBI, and that's a guy who plays sport. His job is to throw a ball and kick a ball and have fun and provide for his family. If other people that are going to go do that, they don't expect to have life and death decisions every minute like we had to, but that we can help the community out there learn from what we did. And it's classic, isn't it? Even in medical society, every conflict, every war tends to bring massive innovations, like a tourniquet. We know tourniquet's been around for over a century, but really it's a big deal in the last 5 years. It came on my fire truck 2 years ago, Justin. So there is things to learn from what we did, and we paid those hard lessons.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think that's the biggest piece of it. And you're right. It's not just war and soldiers and all of that. I mean, same deal. One of my best friends, he played pro football for just a hot second and played college football, obviously, his whole time there. And
Mm.
I think about that often. Like, he'll ask me things about the teams and CCT and everything. And I thought about the other day, I'm like, man, he's probably been rocked as much as I have, or maybe more.
Yeah.
All those plays, and with that size of a human being
Yeah.
hitting you, I mean, it's like getting hit by a small car every day, multiple times. So it adds up, and we are closer. We're more alike than we think. We just look at the tools that somebody carries and we put them in different areas, but really they're suffering from the same thing, right? So
Absolutely. Let's push on to the proactive side of things. And I spoke with you offline. I want to touch on what is about discipline. I want to ask a former tier one operator, what does discipline mean to you? And you were great enough to say, you're a dad, you're a coach, you're a former, this is what I was paraphrasing, former special forces operator. What does discipline mean to you in the different modalities you've got now that you're not in service, now that you're not having to make sure your lanyard is attached to your weapon in case you get blown up, and knowing that your parachute is rigged correctly? What does discipline mean to you, and how are you teaching that in your current life?
I mean, for me, discipline it's part of everything I do. When I fail at something, or I deem I failed at something, it's typically a lack of discipline.
Yes.
It's easy for me to see it, and I'm sure a lot of folks that come from our community, but I just know, I'm like, where's the fail point? And if it doesn't matter if it was skipping a meal, right? Like, why'd I shit to bed, in that in that class, right? And that during that grappling match, what happened? Well, you missed a meal because you weren't disciplined, right? And I just apply that with my kids, especially because they're competing, they're wrestlers, and my son plays football, daughter runs track, and then they do jiu-jitsu. And I apply that to them. I'm like, hey, you've got to fuel the machine. Okay. You want to perform like a race car, you got to put race fuel in it, and you have to
Mm-hmm.
service the end. And you
Yep.
have to do all these things. So from a proactive standpoint, I try to stay on that and be very disciplined, even if I at times feel like, I'm okay. I feel all right. I don't need to go get a massage, a sports massage. Well, what happens is if I get complacent like that, a month later, a month and a half later, I'm like, oh, my back or this or that. I'm like, what's going on with my shoulders all of a sudden? And what is it? I lacked that discipline in a very simple thing where I got off schedule, I got off track, and then these things manifest that are always there. We just have to maintenance them, and maintenance and discipline are really the same thing. Discipline sounds kind of scary, I think, to people
Yeah.
because they think it's very rigid, and it's not. I don't think it's as rigid as we make it seem like it has to be, right? Like,
Yeah, what a great word. What a great point. Because that's why I throw out the word discipline in that question, because it's discipline back in my day was at school getting the corporal punishment. But discipline, you're right, it is maintenance of those things. Just do those things. What does your guy McRaven say? Make your bed in the morning.
exactly. Yeah, and we all slip, we all falter, and it we become a little less disciplined, especially when we're younger. But for me, that's I look at it like that. I don't look at it from a disciplinary standpoint. I look at it from a rule set, a structure, how I structure my life, and I think that we can have discipline throughout. And like my kids, my daughter especially, she's big into nutrition,
Yeah.
and we do an 80-20 rule, right?
Awesome.
We're super disciplined 80% of the week. I mean, I count the meals out for her, and I'm like, look, 28 meals, 20 23 of them are good, 5 are horrible, 82% of your week is perfect eating. Like that's discipline to me. It's not Hitler-esque nutrition guidelines. It is, it's moderation, but that's how I like to handle discipline. Less rigid, but always there.
Yeah, awesome. Kirk Parsley, who I'm not sure if you know, he was a SEAL and he's a doc now. Um, and actually, he helped Kegan out with his sleep. He's essentially a great sleep doctor, and went back to Warcom as their doctor originally. But he had a meme out just the other day, something like "Perfect is the enemy of good. Perfect is the enemy of success." It's that classic paralysis by analysis thing that people often get, but you don't have to be perfect. You just have to do those basics right, and the big things happen. And then, as you said, you literally said we're not all perfect. When it goes a bit sideways, just come back. Just doesn't need a kick in the pants or doesn't need an arm around the shoulder to come back on track.
Yeah, and we did that. I think for a long time we heard the 10,000 reps, right? Like, what's it take to get to make you perfect at something or master something? And we said 10,000 reps. And I tell my athletes and my students, 10,000 reps doesn't get you perfect. It gets you good, and good is better than average. And, and there's levels to everything. But yeah, I would agree. Perfection is it's the enemy of progress, really, just moving forward, not even establishing a good or a better or best, benchmark. So
I guess the question then, because of where you're at now, you're running a great jiu-jitsu dojo, and you've come out of a successful career. Did you always have discipline? And these are questions that I wonder when someone asks me, I know where they're coming from, but did you always have discipline before you went into the military, or was it something you learned? And if it was something you learned in the military, how did going through SEALs and then going through DevGru, SEAL Team 6 for the listeners, how did that change over time?
Yeah, I did. I was always like that. I wasn't disciplined, like we said, in that really rigid, way of life. But I was disciplined because really, I think it was a product of my lifestyle. We grew up in a farming community. My grandparents had a farm. The farm never sleeps. I heard that. So, when I ended up in the military and you never slept, that wasn't news to me. I was up milking cows at 4 a.m. and then again at 4 p.m. because they get milk twice a day. I don't like milking cows, but I did it. Right? And so I think a lot of it came from that lifestyle, and you can't fault someone for not having those experiences as a kid. So I understand how some folks get to a place of discipline and achievement through just growing. But I was fortunate to be around just a very special group of people. Like everybody surrounded me in my community was incredibly hard workers. They believed that hard work would get you to the next place, next station in life. It didn't necessarily, it wasn't a result of talent, money, opportunity. It was a result of hard work. So I just applied that to everything. And when I got into the military, even prior to the military, when I was told, "Oh, you have no idea how hard the SEAL program is," I was like, "Well, I doubt you anybody that's going to work as hard as me to get there." And I just kept applying that over and over. And there are guys that could outwork me when I got there, of course, right? Like everybody, there's always somebody in the room, right?
Yep.
And if there's not, you should go find a room with that person in it because they'll continue to push you. But that really, it really served me well. Um, Years ago, I told a group at a command conference for SWAT teams on the East Coast. I said, don't be afraid to push the broom, because I had an instructor in the SEAL teams, and he said that, like, don't be the guy that, at the end of the day doesn't clean up. Grab the freaking broom and help clean up. Don't be too good for it. So I was good at that because that's what I was used to. I was used to shoveling shit and doing the jobs that you didn't want to do, but you had to, because that's how a farm works and functions.
Yeah.
So, and then did it change, to your question about how it changed when I got into the service, I think it changed just through like the seasons of life, having kids, and different areas of my life requiring attention. And then your discipline shifts and it changes, and you just can't apply it all to this. There are things that you have to compromise on and say, okay, I'd really like my 8 hours of sleep, but I'm not getting that today because I have a newborn at home, and she needs a break from the baby or this or that. So that would be the only thing that I would say through the service time. It changed as I became a dad, a husband, and all of those things. And then post military, it changed again because I'm in a new season of my life, and I'm not around those guys. And I think that we take for granted a little bit that our teammates keep us in check, and there's built-in discipline right there.
Yep.
Because they're watching. And then when nobody's watching, you start to kind of skimp here or there. And then I had to dial it back in. I felt it. I felt like I was losing a bit of my identity after the service.
Wow.
And that's why I really got back into jiu-jitsu, and shooting again, and doing all those things that I did my whole adult life that had sculpted me, kind of curated everything that I do and I'm capable of. So yeah, getting back to that and then reinserting the discipline, it all came back and I felt better.
That's cool. And that's a soundbite right there. When I interviewed Mark yesterday, former Australian SAS, we focus on purpose, identity, connection, and how I say you lose one, it's like a three-legged stool. You lose one of those, it gets a bit wobbly. You lose two, it's really bad, and three is a bad day out. And I was talking about how he went on after service to carry on that purpose, identity, and connection. And he talked about a bunch of different things, which is really interesting. But I think the ones that, this isn't a veteran show. We interview scientists and sports people and world record holders and operators, a bunch of different people. I think what I've seen, the ones that successfully, air quotes, transition are the ones that do that slowly over time. He went to be a PMC for 6 years. Your guys, DJ Shipley and Cole, they're doing tactical training and now they're doing mindset stuff and fitness stuff. The ones who transition slowly, they seem to have a much better idea of it. So to hear you say you're going back to shooting and going back to the things you knew, I think that clearly would help you with your identity.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about the rate at which you transition necessarily before this, but I would agree with that. I came out and I was very eager to take care of my family. So I put myself right back into college, finished my degree, applied for medical school because I was a combat medic. And in my mind, I was thinking, what's the clearest path to continued success and taking care of my family? And that was a horrible decision because I was really unhappy in it. Yeah. I didn't want to, I found myself in those interviews for medical school, like thinking, what the hell am I doing? I don't want to, this has become a political thing. This is no longer differential diagnosis and helping people, serving in a capacity. It's become politics, and I don't want to play politics. I've already played politics, at different organizations. So I did kind of jump in the deep end right there. Now, I was able to complete my degree and meet a lot of great people and have those experiences. So I'll take it for what it was worth. But I agree with you. A slower transition, while maybe a little uncomfortable for a while, is probably a better path.
Yeah, I'm with you there. It's interesting hearing the same stories. Um, just to tie a knot in discipline, you're a jiu-jitsu instructor now, and you've got kids. What lessons have you taken away from DevGru that you're using or that you're naturally using? I mean, the other thing is, Justin, you and I don't realize what we do. My station officer at the fire station the other day, I pointed something out when we were driving, and he's like, "People just don't think like you." And it was a good way. It was like I was looking for a person that might cross the road and the truck would hit them. He said, other people just don't think like you're normal. So our normal is so different. But the question for you is, what lessons are you taking from that tier one operation into dad life and into your jiu-jitsu instruction?
Geez, I mean, I probably rely on it more than I should. People maybe get tired of hearing it. I catch myself saying the same things. Two is one, one is none. You know,
my boyo's over here just listen to that exact phrase. He knows it well.
yeah, yeah, but it's true. You know what I mean? I'm working through this new thing for like coaching other athletes. Like I have a national champion basketball team that they're girls. It's a girls basketball team, and they want to do some leadership stuff, and they might come shoot with me. And then I'm also working with some college wrestlers and some different groups, and then in jujitsu and all these different things. And I think about like dominating the inside space, right? And how we take down a target and we dominate the inside, right? Like you don't deal with a barricaded shooter without going internal,
Mm.
right? Unless you're dropping the building, of course.
Yeah, yeah, of
But
course.
you start thinking about how do we beat somebody on a racetrack? We take the inside, right? We always dominate these inside spaces. How do we do it in wrestling? We get
Yeah.
inside ties.
Yep.
We with jujitsu, we get inside, we get underneath. We even if it's the legs, we're working to the inside, right? And then we have direct paths to succeeding. So I use it every day. I lean on everything that I learned there. I think again, I think those were lessons that were learned and written in blood, and I really value that. I don't take it for granted or take it lightly, and I I believe in that the process of trial and error, right, and things being repeatable and uh, insanity. Like doing the same thing over and over, but
Expecting a
expecting
different result.
a result,
Yeah.
right? Like I don't think you should continue on that. So yeah, I've taken a lot from it. I apply it to the kids. I'm sure they probably are sicker than anyone of hearing it, but the athletes especially, like you can just see their wheels turning. They're like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense, right?" Like, yeah, if I was gonna outrun someone, I would on the corner, I would take the inside.
Yep.
Wow. So you're telling me inside ties are are more position, and immediately they see the correlation. So yeah, and I think you have to be at the right stage in your life too to see all those correlations.
Yeah.
And then and maybe so yeah, some people don't hear the message either, but yeah, I apply a lot of what I learned in the teams and dev group, especially when I got to see the resources and um, appreciate specialists more. I think when I got there, like people, whether it was support people or guys that were, part of the recce cell, air god, sky gods, right? Guys that, thousands and thousands and thousands of jumps. And you start to really appreciate like people's specialties. And then I bring that over, like, hey, you, you shouldn't you shouldn't learn from somebody that has all the answers. And I'm not afraid to tell somebody if I don't know something. I'll say I don't know that, but I know somebody that could maybe get you there, right?
Yeah.
And that's really powerful for me going forward. And I think dev group showed me that, like, you're a door kicker. That's what you do. You know, I remember one of the senior enlisted guys asked me that. He said, well, you know, what were your collateral duties at Team 2? And I said, oh, I was a combat medic, sniper, and I spoke Pashtun. And he was like, okay, cool. And then I didn't do any of those things. Like, it was just like, I guess he was just getting a doing a climate survey and seeing what everybody was capable of and what they wanted to do. Because when I got to the squadron, it was, you're an assaulter. That's all you are.
Yep.
You don't touch the med bag. You're not a sniper. Recce, we have recce team for that. You're an assaulter. You kick in the door. You're here to die if need be for the hostage, right?
Yep.
We put our life on the line for the hostage.
Yep.
And so that kind of thing taught me a lot. Like, hey, maybe jack of all trades, master of none. Maybe that's not, you know, always the right thing, right? So that helps with athletes, because especially athletes that want to perform, they need very, very specialized training in certain areas.
You've actually answered the question I asked about 20 minutes ago in a great way. And I'd say these loaded questions because humor and humility is one of the tenets of New Zealand SAS. And it comes through clearly with all tier 1 guys. And that question getting thrown at you, you're not going to answer the question like, oh, you should listen to me because I've been doing this for this long. But you answered it in examples, which was absolutely brilliant. The bit that stood out there was when you said that makes sense, Justin. And Pete Blaber, CEO of Delta, or OC, I'm not sure which way it was. I'm still trying to figure it out. But at one stage, he did command all the Delta Force in Afghan. He wrote a book called The Common Sense Way. It has to make sense. And then also, we have to have the humility as operators to go, well, actually, I'm not sure about that. Can someone help me make it make sense? And you figure out what really works. You talked about the inside line, the inside tie, all those things. Those things work and they're proven over and over. And we are lucky enough that we stand on the shoulders of giants that were experts at that for many years, and they brought us to being expertish, and we were there ready to learn. So you've answered in a really great way of practicality of how a tier 1 operator teaches others and how they're of value in the civilian world and in all walks of life. So that was awesome. And then you open up the segue for me with the coaching and the other sports into performance enhancement, which is the other part of today's show that I wanted to touch on. Performance enhancement, it came to me today that connotation to me means steroids, cheating, all those things like that. That's the words, but it's not that. It's performance enhancement. How do we make you better? At New Zealand SAS in 2007, or in the counter-terrorist team, that I was on, where the compression garments come in. That was our performance enhancement, because $150 for a compression garment that lasts like a year would get us good recovery. And so that was unheard of in the military. Performance enhancement for athleticism. What did you learn in the teams, and how's that translated to the 2020s for you?
Yeah, I think again it goes back to access to resources, I suppose, to a degree. But you're right. People think performance enhancing, they immediately go to PEDs, right?
Yeah.
Performance enhancing drugs. But really, what enabled me to perform better in a lot of things was doing new things, right? And having access to new things. So I'm a better dancer now than I ever was, because I do Muay Thai, I do Jiu-Jitsu, I wrestle, I have more choreographed movements now, right? With feet, hands, and I always tell that joke. I'm like, I don't dance because I don't want to dance. I can dance, right? Because we have so much movement with fight sports, and I tell people a lot of times when I'm coaching them, I say, hey, this might not be your move. You might not be built for this. You might be 5'3", built like a bowling ball, right? Or you might be 6'5", lanky, and I'm teaching you something that dirty boxing style, like getting
Yeah.
underneath somebody on the inside, and you're gigantic. Everybody's a level below you and on the inside. So it might not work for you, but I think it makes people more athletic. There's the synapses happening, right? We know that boxing helps Alzheimer patients, right? And patients with dementia, right? We know that neuroplasticity is a real thing, and learning new things at older ages helps us. So I look at performance enhancement differently as well. I
Yeah.
think one of my biggest breakthroughs with strength was I started doing CrossFit around like 2009.
Mm-hmm.
But I what I really liked, and maybe it's from growing up and watching Olympic Games and stuff like that, I liked the gymnastics piece of CrossFit. I
Yeah.
really went in on that, and that made me so much stronger in all areas. And so to me, that was a performance enhancing piece of that for me. I became better at different events and activities because of the gymnastics side of it. And then you get into the actual things, right? The devices, the technology, the watching your heart rate variability. And then that can stem over to hormone replacement therapy. And I think for our community, especially, that's a big deal. We've got guys that their adrenals are fried. They've been operating too hard in the paint too long.
Yeah.
And that's a real thing. But there can be some abuse on that side if those symptoms aren't there. But um, yeah, it's all encompassing, I think,
It
right?
is. It
But
is. When
um,
I thought to give this question some context, when I was in the general military, when I was an infantry soldier, we used to do PT and come back, and some guys be having a coffee, some guys be having we'll say a donut. I don't know what the equivalent was at the time, and maybe I'll be having a protein shake. When I got to when we're doing PT with New Zealand SAS on the counter terrorist team, we come back, we quickly into that shower, then the skins are on, the compression garments, we're all doing protein shakes and this and that around the team table. And then 20 minutes later, we're getting our plan together and going to the kill house. So we're like actual career athletes at that time. What a difference that was. And that was just discipline. That wasn't any fancy technology, really. So, was that different for you going from the military to up to DevGru? How important you treated your bodies for performance?
yeah, I think Dev Group it's like the SEAL teams on steroids. We're talking
There we
about
go.
PED.
Yeah.
You know, the a comparative to like buds, I'd rather go through buds again than selection.
Wow.
Because you select, buds is a beat down. It's attrition.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if we can break this human being mentally. And that's why at the end you're surprised by the people that are standing there, because it's not the most physical human being. It's not the smartest one. You realize that at the end when you're standing with 20 some teammates after you started with over 200.
Wow. Yeah.
But selection was very much performance based. There was still the physical piece of it, but it was performance. So that was when my house, I taped my house off, all the walls, all the doorways,
Oh,
and my buddies would come over to the house and we'd do dry runs with airsoft guns while
yep.
my kids were in bouncers on the living room floor to make sure that our feet were the correct amount of inches off the wall,
Yep.
and we were 12 inches off our buddies' muzzles on the sweeps. And, we practiced all those things to prepare for that because it was truly performance based.
Yep.
So, yeah, I changed a little bit because buds gears you up for the SEAL teams.
Mm-hmm.
And really, all you leave buds knowing is how to be hard,
Yeah.
right? Like you get, people probably don't want to hear this, but you don't really get that much weapons training or hand-to-hand combat training. They just try to break you for 6 months on end. And you go into SEAL qualification training and you get those skills, but it's still at a very basic level. We do the majority of our skill set training on the job. So you check in as a new guy.
Oh, wow.
And you're told pretty much to forget everything you know. And then you start learning combat clearance and how the platoon does things and how platoon to platoon does things. So that was, it's a little different transition, I think, going into the SEAL teams, vice going into development group.
Yeah.
By time you get there and there's enough gouge out there and people talking about it, that you know what you need to do to succeed. And the guys that are disciplined, surprise, surprise, they're usually the ones that make it through the course. You can't show up on the job in selection and just, okay, they're going to tell me what I need to do. You have to be a little bit ahead of that. You should already be doing it. So that's how that differs, in my opinion.
Yep. It's interesting. As you're saying that, I was thinking back to a show I did with Don Mann. I'm not sure if you know who he is. He's around Marcinko's era. And Don Mann went up to be whatever your Navy equivalent is of a sergeant major. Great guy. He's got a TV show, Surviving Man, now. But the stories he told of the old school Dev Group wasn't, I don't think it was called that at that time, with Marcinko and things, who he worked with was amazing. And yeah, how that was created, it still stuns me that you're so young compared to Delta, and then going back compared to SAS, and how you've done so well. So it was interesting hearing about your selection process. I wasn't going to go there, but you brought it up. They're so different. How do you, what is selection? How do you get into Dev Group? And again, context, New Zealand SAS, you turn up on day one and do selection for the 9 days, and then you do your 9-month cycle of training. Australian SAS is a 2 or 3 week selection, and then carrying on. What I did, the counter-terrorist team, was a shorter selection and training, and Delta's the same sort of thing. But this green team thing in Dev Group seems to be a bit different. Do you just apply and then you turn up on the start line? And how long is the process?
Yeah, it was really long. From the time you apply, you basically put in a package, and you have to have recommendations, or it helps. You don't have to, but it helps to have guys that are already over there that can vouch for you. It's really a good old boys club.
Wow. Okay.
So you in a way have to know somebody. They have to vouch for you, and then you got to go forward and prove it.
Yeah.
So there's gatekeepers, but yeah, it starts with a package. You put your package in, and then and that gets reviewed, and then if you get selected to try out, you'll do the physical screener, and if you make it through that, it just keeps turning into another thing, interviews, and then they eventually let you know, hey, you've been selected to try out, and you'll get orders cut to go over there temporarily. And I think we started around like April, and I graduated in November. So it's a process, and it's phased out, and so many rounds downrange, so many clearances. You go through so many doorways. It's just everything. So many jumps. I did more jumps in Green Team than I did the entire time I was at SEAL Team 2 in just one jump block. So, and that's not to dog on the other teams. It's just that we go back to that specialty piece, right? A SEAL team is they're responsible for so much in a theater, and they're responsible for manning, readiness, right? And there's just so much time for everything, and then also trying to keep the force mentally healthy and the families healthy, in the sense of keeping them together. So it changes a little bit when you get over there, because you have less on your plate, but more, you're required to perform better at the things that are on your plate. So yeah, you really go through all the same phases that you would in a regular workup for a SEAL team. And you get graded along the way. And there's, like anything, there's a point where you kind of know you're going to make it at that stage. And then sometimes they come and drop somebody after that, even though everybody thinks they're ready to go. And then you end up at the squadrons. So, and then things change again because every squadron does stuff slightly different.
Yep. Yep. What do you think the being an older athlete, because that's what you are now, what would be your top three pieces of advice for an older athlete to stay healthy? And is pulling this whole show together, you talked before about, you skipped that massage. I literally did. I was literally at the massage therapist yesterday because my calf's been torn up for the last 4 or 5 days. So, what's the top three things an older athlete should do to stay healthy and to be able to be a dad and run around with your kid? Is it nutrition? Whatever, carte blanche. Three things that, if a guy your age came to you and maybe a bit broken from works and things he's done, what are the top three things that you'd give advice from him or her to do to stay healthy and stay strong and stay in shape?
Yeah. I'll start with the obvious ones. I think the hydration and nutrition is key. I can't tell you how many times I have a nagging injury and it's just because I'm not hydrating, right? And my electrolytes are jacked up. So the nutrition piece of it, metabolism slows, everything. The ability to put muscle on changes as we age. The chemical reactions inside your body they're literally changing. Different things are going on at our ages, right? Like I turned 40 last year. I'll be 41 in another couple months. So I think that because our chemistry is changing, we need to make sure that we are dialed in on nutrition. You're not going to get away with the things you did. I don't drink that often, but if I went out on a bender, I'd be done. For a week.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I don't drink because it ruins everything that I do up until that point. All the working out, the everything I put in, I feel it's all lost because I'm a shit sandwich for the next 3-4 days. Yeah. And I don't sleep when I drink anymore. And that could be some of the TBI related stuff. But if I have 3 drinks or more, I won't sleep at night. And that affects me dramatically on my recovery if I'm working out hard. And I'm going to keep working. I still work out hard, so that means that I'm going to not recover. I'm not going to rebuild. So the nutrition is key. The therapeutic stuff, and I'll add sleep into that.
Yeah.
And I know that, money is a limitation. Access to those therapeutic modalities is a limitation. But if you can, you've got to be on top of your sleep. You have to. A good friend of mine says, sleep as much as you can without getting divorced or fired from your job.
I like that.
And I think it really holds true. Now I went through a divorce, so I took it too much to heart. But I think sleep is imperative for the recovery, and it's going to aid in everything you're doing on the nutrition side because you're recovering at night, right? Or rebuilding. But the therapy, the ice, the sauna, different things like scraping, acupuncture. I don't think it's a one size fits all. I think different things help different people.
Yeah.
Some folks don't like going to see the chiropractor. I go because, like I said, if I get complacent and I don't go, then something happens, and you get into that process of, well, I don't feel bad right now, so I don't need to go this week.
Yeah.
And then it catches you.
I'll tell you, can I just put input to that as well? I'm not wise, but I am old. I'm still waiting for the wisdom to kick in. My barber, she's a top athlete in bodybuilding and figure, and she had a really bad back injury. I've had some really horrible injuries, and I was just saying to her one day, I was saying, I'm doing my exercises and I feel great. And in the past, Larissa, I feel great, so I can stop doing my exercises. And she's like, yeah, we feel good because we're doing them. It's not an end state to achieve. So it's because we're doing it that we feel good. And just like you were saying there.
Yep, 100%. And that kind of leads to my third and final thing, that you have to keep moving. I like I and this could be, I guess I'll know when I'm really old how this serves me, but my plan is to push my body as hard as I can until it won't go.
Yep.
That's just because in the last 5 years, I'll say that, I'm starting to feel age coming, right?
Yep.
Um, if I don't go hard in the paint, if I don't roll as hard as I possibly can, if I don't put plates on the bar, I don't feel well. If I skip the gym, I don't feel better when you know what I mean? If I have a
Yep.
nagging injury, I actually feel better. I joke about it. Like if something's bothering you, hurt something else on your body
Yeah.
and you'll forget about that thing. That's probably not the best advice, but I do think there's something to be said for that. Like you see guys that are in their 60s and they're just grinding and getting after it. And I think they're in some level of discomfort, but I think they're way better off, especially for their mind, doing that than, sitting inside, getting overweight, still having the back pain,
Yeah.
uh, hating themselves because they're no longer who they once were. So I think going as hard as you can for as long as you can is what really keeps us going and moves us into the next season. And maybe it changes. And that's where I think learning new things is great, right? Like I love seeing students come in that are 45 or 50 years old. And they're like, I think, you think I could do jujitsu? I'm kind of old. I'm like, you kidding me? Let's go. And they love it, right? They love it. And sometimes I feel like they get hurt and they still love it because they're like, even with with a tweaked knee, I feel night and day better than I did 2 years ago. On the couch, a brisk walk would get me out of breath. So
Yeah.
I think running it as hard as you can, as long as you can, for me, that's one of the things I have to keep doing.
I read something the other day from a friend of mine, and I can't remember who it was, but he just said, "Listen, if I don't get my exercise in at 8 in the morning, I'm cranky all day. I'm a grumpy guy." And it's another way of saying what you said. You feel great because you did that, even though you got a tweaked injury here. You can do all these other things. I remember out of my surgery, I had a couple of surgeries in the last few years. It's only on my ankle. I can still do everything else. So you're still moving and you do feel better for it. And we are made as humans to move, Justin. So I completely agree with you. And doing what suits you. You're going back to your jiu-jitsu moves. This may be for you, it may not be, but finding the modality of movement, the modality of therapeutics that works for you, because the results matter.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a really good buddy of mine. He was at the command with me and he was a diver. And he came up and he's a black belt and he came up and helped teach here years ago. And one of the guys had an injury. He had something going on with his thumb. And he asked him, he says, "Hey Bill, how do you deal with injuries? This and that." And he says, "Well, I actually broke my hand years back and it was in a cast." And the guy says, what'd you do?" And he's like, "I became really good at choking people with my left hand." And he kind of looked at him like, "What?" And he was dead serious though. He's like, "No, I rolled with the cast." He's like, "I didn't go bonkers,
Yeah.
but continued rolling." Sitting out is not the answer. It's rarely the answer. I think kids don't know that. Kids get injured and they say, "Well, I don't need to go to practice because I can't run the ball because I'm
Yeah.
hurt." Well, there's still a lot to be gained from being there, supporting your teammates, continuing to learn, even though you're not you're not playing your part right now. So that's our job, is to like help them see that, right? Like
Yeah. That's
that
the
was a good example. I started choking people with my other hand, just that hand.
Yeah, man, I love it. Um, Justin, I want to wrap up the show and find tell people where to find you here. But look, it's just been amazing having you on, and thank you for being so open about those points we went over. Really great to see your success on the other side of things. We didn't do war stories, which is great. I enjoy finding out where people are at now. So, you know, you said you're leading sports teams. People are coming to you for all those skills. You've got the jiu-jitsu going on, but people that want to go and get some of Justin and come to your school and learn from you, where's the best places to find you? And we do narrated show notes at the start, so they've got those. But where's the best places to come and find out more about you now?
Yeah, if you guys want to follow me on social media, that's great. I've been bad about it in the past just because it's a little bit of that humility piece and
Mm.
trying to be a quiet professional, but we're in 2026 almost, and if you're not on social media, you're not usually going to get recognized. So my handle is justin.shane.779, and then we can put my email in the show notes there for folks. It's shane1876@gmail.com. But yeah, folks are more than welcome to reach out to me on social media, Instagram, Facebook, not on TikTok or any of that stuff. But yeah, so, but you guys are always welcome to reach out. I love training. I was talking to a coach today, and I said, he asked me about scheduling. And he said, can you make anything work? Do we need to? Are you booked up? Where are you at schedule wise? And I told him, and I meant it. Like, unless there's another group that I'm mentoring or teaching, I'll move everything else in my life because this is creating purpose for me. It's
Yeah,
helping me. It helps me stay sane. I
yeah,
need to do these kinds of things and feel like I'm still part of something and giving back. And we all complain. Like, I'll get done with a class and I'll do the thing that we do where we complain about stuff, but I need it. I need to be part of that. So yeah, I'm happy to help anybody. I lean in heavily on the self-defense side of stuff just because I think that people should take things into their own hands and be able to protect themselves and their loved ones. So if anybody needs anything, find me on social. You can shoot me an email.
and that's cool. And where is your jiu-jitsu dojo?
Yeah, we have an academy in Traverse City, Michigan. It's under Gustavo Machado. So Gustavo used to come into the command a couple days a week. I built a relationship with Gustavo. He's under John Jacques Machado and Roberto Correa, Henzo Gracie. We're all part of that same lineage. And yeah, he's an incredible, he's a great friend, mentor. Like, when I left the teams, I reached back out to him and I said, "Hey, I want to continue this." And he gave me an affiliate. He said, "You should become an affiliate, and this and that." And we're called Detachment North. We're all the way up here in the north. I think the next closest one's like 700-800 miles south of here.
Wow.
Uh, but we have a great lineage, and that I really value that. I think things get watered down and diluted, and we do need people holding us accountable, and
Yep.
he does that for us. Outside of being a great friend, he holds me accountable, and then in turn I hold others accountable. So Traverse City's where the academy's at. I go just about anywhere in terms of the shooting and seminars and leadership stuff. I'll travel, so not afraid to boogie out of state or even go. I'd love to go across the pond and do stuff at some point. So
Cool. You brought it up, so I do need to touch on it, Justin. Self-defense, and that's my bag. I'm terrible at jiu-jitsu. My boy's better than me. He's 10 years old. he's saying, yeah, I am. Um, so what's the difference? And this is for the listeners. You're listening to a tier one special forces operator and a jiu-jitsu expert. What's the difference between self-defense and fighting? What's the difference between self-defense and sports?
in my opinion, the only difference is, in one, there's a medal on the line. In the other, your life is on the line.
Yes.
So I know that people get wrapped around the axle about, like, is this a competition school where we do sport jujitsu, or is it more focused on self-defense? I'm a I'm a big proponent of consistency And I just don't think that you can argue that somebody that is super talented on their feet with their hands and kicks, or somebody that's on the mat great at grappling, I just don't think you can argue that in a self-defense scenario, they're ill-equipped to defend
Absolutely.
themselves.
Agreed.
So I like to teach a little bit of both. And when it's easier to highlight that this is a self-defense type movement
Mm-hmm.
or submission or control, I will bring that up. I'll say, hey, this is great for self-defense, especially with the women. I think women need something a little different, just because they're dealing with biology and so there's stuff that fits them better. But it's still, at its root, it still could be applied in sport jiu-jitsu or sport fighting.
Yep.
So I personally don't see them different. I don't see them differently, other than in one, your life's on the line, and the other, medal's on the line.
Now, if I
And
pause that from the context of you and so one, I agree, but you and I apply all our tools and skills and everything we have differently than other people do. So you've said your life's on the line and you've got a wrestling skill or you've got a punching and kicking skill, then what is the outcome to achieve? It's a bit different now, isn't it? The difference is to save your life.
here's what I've noticed. I'm sure you've noticed it too. My violence takes over a lot in the jiu-jitsu and the aggression.
Yeah.
And because of that, we're not at least my curriculum is not a guard pulling curriculum. I believe strongly in positional dominance, being up one level above at all times, hunting the submission. I like submission only stuff, watching it, doing it, because I think that there's incentive to be the attacker, be on the offense.
Yeah.
So yeah, it changes with us, and I think people see that and they're like, well, how do I get there? You know what I mean? And I think that's why we have to do live sparring. I don't
Yes.
like when there's not live sparring, because it's the only way to put somebody in that fight or flight mode and find out if they're going to flee or stand and fight. So I like the live sparring. I think that's how we negotiate that for the people that lack the experience that we had, where your life was on the line.
Yeah.
If they lack that experience, we give them as close to an experience as we can. We put them, when they're not getting it from certain partners, we put them with partners that will give them that experience, and you elicit that response from them. And then when they have success, you tell them like, hey, that occurred because you got the pass, you got the takedown, right? Like, you didn't sit and wait. And then if you just apply that to a self-defense rule set, we're winning now, right?
I like that you said, you didn't say the word offensive. You alluded to that. Self-defense is a marketing term, because as soon as there's a battle, as soon as you have made contact with me, now I will be the offensive action to eliminate the threat. Did you ever do the Dwayne Dieter thing where you're in the box with the hood? Can you explain that, please? I'd love to get that firsthand on camera.
Yeah, that was interesting. And I didn't like the Dieter school in terms of like curriculum and stuff. I thought it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
But the hood drill is actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
Because it puts you in an unknown situation. I mean, what is that people are watching and grading you when the hood comes up, and you're dealing with multiple attackers. You're dealing with compliant and non-compliant people. You don't know what the scenario is. And you really get to do whatever you want. Like, you handle the situation that you best see fit. Now, they would like to see you handle it with their rule of escalation and their Dieter tactics. But I wrestled in high school, and I can tell you that when the hood went up, anybody non-compliant was getting wrestled to the ground.
Yeah.
And then when you watch other students go through it, you realize, like, dang, all the guys that wrestled pretty much crushed these scenarios. And you get a little bit of critique from the cadre. They're like, you're supposed to be doing this and that, but you and everybody else and them know, like, that's what you want, right? Being on top, being positionally dominant. But you basically, you go in there and you stand in a box, and they drop the hood over you. It's on a pulley and a rope. And they tell everybody, you know, are you ready? Are you ready? People come in from the back of the room through the door. You don't know how many people are in there. And then when the hood goes up, somebody might be talking to themselves in the corner, right? Another guy's acting squirrely over here with a rubber knife in his hand, and you have to deal with it, right? So really, some of the law enforcement guys asked me if we could do some of that kind of stuff, which would be really cool to see them doing it, because they deal with that unknown all the time.
All the time.
We anticipated non-compliant people. You hit a target in the middle of the night after you got all the intel, we're pretty certain that they're not going to be non-compliant. Law enforcement doesn't deal with that. Law enforcement deals with mostly compliant people. So I think it'd pay dividends for those guys to get that training, you know.
I agree.
And then on the one thing on the aggression for like the jiu-jitsu stuff,
yeah.
I try to tell people it's not chess. It's not your move, my move, your move, my move. It might be my move in the beginning, but then it's yours, and it's yours to keep. So
yes.
If again the volley of fire, right? The incessant attacks, the chain wrestling, my move, my move, my move, even when they fail, it looks like aggression, but it's just will, and it's chain wrestling, chain grappling, constant offense.
100%. So. You have absolutely nailed it, which is amazing. It's you're defensive for the contact. Don't get killed or don't get knocked out. And after that, I'm going to go to work. And the only time I'm going to stop working, and that could be chopping, kicking, doing whatever you're doing. And you said things like chain wrestling and chain jiu-jitsu. The only time I stop working is when I'm unconscious or the threat's gone. So I've won or I've lost, but it's not John Wick. Yeah. So it's really great to hear, and thank you so much. I didn't have that in the notes. From an operator, jiu-jitsu or a combat specialist in combat sports, to elucidate what self-defense is. It's about attacking that, you know, you're in charge. It's about attacking that attacker to eliminate that threat to whatever is reasonable. But yeah, that's using those tools, whatever it is, if it's jiu-jitsu, wrestling, or hitting, whatever it is. But that's what self-defense for saving your life is.
I agree. Yeah,
it's great to be on the same page. It's hard to have that conversation on Instagram.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you don't know if you're hurting feelings, but I think a lot of us think the same way. It's just how we articulate it, and it comes off contextually. It's different. You're like, oh, he's got a different philosophy as me. Not really. We're not speaking the same language or something. Not that you and I had that at all. We just didn't talk about it at all.
Yeah.
But I knew that you're the self-defense. You're the how not to die guy, right? So it's really valuable, really important. I have a daughter. You know, I want her empowered. I want her to be able to protect herself, but I want her to be able to protect her kids when she's older. I tell women all the time. I have a women's group of realtors on this coming Monday, 21 of them. And other professional gals that work in the community. And I don't want them to leave there thinking they're going to be world beaters and take out some 205-pound man. I want them to understand the battles that they win within that one altercation. If your girlfriend's with you and you practice punch prevention, you get knocked down to the ground and you're doing punch prevention, and you're koala beared on this guy, and you're shutting down his tools. Every second you do it, you're buying your girlfriend, your kids, your mom, your grandma, you're buying people time. And those are wins. We have to look at it differently. Not, I beat you, you beat me. That's not it.
Hell no. There's a difference between someone who's been there and done it. And I was saying that the other day. I was saying, you know, there's the has-beens, which is us, unfortunately, Justin. We are has-beens now. Yeah. But there's the wannabes, and those wannabes are dangerous people. The has-been, yeah, it's maybe a bit slower, but the wannabes, man, you don't want to be listening to those people.
No. So, well,
Dude,
thank you. I really appreciate you having on.
yeah, I appreciate you your time. Thank you so much for such a great chat. And we've got all the show links there. I hope someone has got something out of this that's helped them. And thank you so much. It's been great to meet you.
Yeah, you too. Take
Awesome. I'll
care.
hit pause. We have a quick chat. Thanks for watching. I'm Damien Porter, former New Zealand Special Forces operator and former Australian police officer, and your podcast host. Please check out my new project at hownottoDieAguy.com, where I teach everything you need to know to both males and females, at-risk populations, schools, kids, and the elderly for self-defense, situational awareness, and all-round skills that every good person should know. Thanks for watching.